I don't even know how long I've been talking just to realize that my video cut off. But building software is a marathon. And as I was trying to say before I realized that this video got, I don't know, disrupted, I was at NDC London and I was having a conversation with one of the speakers. And, he looked at me while we were talking and he said, building software is a marathon. And there's so many details that are involved to finally deliver something that generates value, right? I agree. I'm going to try something different and I'm going to attempt to get my 1 mile run as I continue preaching. And I don't know, I'll stare at how do we say this? I think you talk about building software, right? Then I see it as going one of two ways. You can treat software as a marathon and you realize that there's going to be a long road ahead to nail down or implement this specification, but also to nail down what's not in the specification. The sad path to not be a code monkey, but be a knowledge worker and assist in partnering or to be a partner of the client that you're helping and not just be a robot, garbage in and garbage out on what they instruct you to do, because you're not a code monkey. You're an engineer. At least that's what you should strive to be. So anyways, let me try to elaborate. You can endure the marathon, and before you ship, you get the software working that delivers value more than it delivers headaches. And I'll just say that again. You can choose to treat software as a marathon in which you deliver more value than you deliver headaches. Or you could be like the folks that I work with 70% of the time throughout my career, that software isn't a marathon. Software is a death march. And these people, they don't get paid to deliver awesome things. No, they get paid to create problems and then to solve those problems. They get paid to create their own problems and the company's problems just to solve the problems that they created that the company didn't anticipate. But because software development is so cryptic to the business in regards to transparency, I would say it's easy to disguise the issues or the growth opportunities or the shortcuts that didn't work out to the business. I've learned over time that if you want to build a system that generates more values than headaches, then you have to be meticulous. You have to try very hard to steer away from shortcuts or quick and dirty. And if you do decide to take shortcuts or quick and dirty, I would argue that it's absolutely paramount that you document it and have a checklist so that it will be handled. But the thing is even if you maintain a checklist of your shortcuts, of your workarounds, of things that you know is borderline wrong, even if you document all that, I will say that the probability of you really handling that before it causes issues with whether it's in production or requirements change or new features are specified, you just create way more work than if you just took the time to knock it out. And I know that there's business demands. Well, as I said before, even though the business can demand, the business can't see what the software system looks like. They can be told, but if they were actually in the development chair and observing all the dependencies within this jungle of mess that we call a code base, then they would have to realize that you can demand this all you want. I need you to sign on this dotted line that the repercussions, the consequences are going to compound because of your demand based on the current state of the system. That for whatever reason needs to be refactored, or the people that wrote the system didn't continuously refactor as they were building it, and now they're asking permission. I feel like I ran off on a tangent. Let me see. What else? Software is a marathon. Let me try to take this metaphor of a marathon. Marathon is something that isn't necessarily a race. It's more of a milestone. When I was training for my marathon several years ago, sometimes people would ask me, do you really think you can win? And I'll look at them, I'm like, a marathon isn't really as much of a race as it is proving oneself. You don't train for a marathon, at least if you're not elite, if you're not a Boston marathoner, you don't train to come in first place. You train to cross the finish line, okay? And if you consistently cross the finish line at previous marathons, then you train to improve your personal record. I would argue that those two items are the main intent of a marathon. How does that translate to software? Well, I don't know, I could pull something out and say that, not sure how to do the analogy of you just want to cross the finish line, because that means that you can ship anything with bugs by any due date whatsoever. So that might be a poor example. The second part of what I said about improving your personal record is, well, I think we're human ledgers. Our habits, our lives, our encounters, just in general, our behaviors are based on past experiences for the most part. Even if it's subconscious, even if it's an instant reaction, all that has been trained from whether it's infancy, childhood, or adolescence. We're creatures of habit, and those habits are based on our personal experiences. Human beings are not programmed by syntax. Human beings are programmed by personal experiences, right? So, what can I say about that? Say I'm halfway through my mile. I would say that if you want to take the metaphor of improving your personal record while training for a marathon or running the marathon, then it's important not at the end of a project, right? Not at the end of a sprint, but at the end of an exercise, at the end of what do you call it? Village Johnson and other people practice, where you have like, I think like 40-minute blocks of pure concentration. I think it starts with a P. I can't remember the name, but whenever you have an intense duration of concentration for solving a given problem, then I would say at the end of that particular exercise or focus point, you take 5+ minutes to go for a walk, take a shower, take a dump, and reflect on what the problem was, and if it's really the problem that you're supposed to be solving based on what you're really supposed to be building for the software, or did you go on a tangent? I do this all the time, and I would say 50%, I'll say a third of the time, I realized that the last 40 minutes or hour of what I was fumbling on, trying to figure out, it's me going off on a tangent or a rabbit hole, and it gives me an opportunity to rethink my strategy and readdress what my objective is, and that almost always works out for the better. And at that, I have completed my 1 mile, and it was lightning fast because I'm so distracted, thinking out loud, but at the same time recording myself on YouTube. I feel like I could go for another mile, man. All right, so I set software as a marathon. Maybe I'll do 1.5 miles. Set software as a marathon. Then I gave a couple of what I try to do examples. Okay? Is there anything else I want to talk about? On a different note, I'm trading angry tweets with the founder or developer of Ionide, which is a Visual Studio Code plugin for an IDE that supports the F# programming language. And he's already a cynical person, but so am I. I just don't vent as much in public as he does. I think he's Russian. I can't even say his name. But I tweeted in a ventful way after Visual Studio had made an announcement saying that Visual Studio 2019 Preview 3, I think, will be out soon or is already out. And they said, additional features or support enhancements for C#. And then they said Python. And I'm not sure if they said Visual Basic. I think they did say Visual Basic. I'm not sure though. But they said, obviously for C#. But then they say Python. And they said 1 or 2 other languages. But it was not F#. Now, I'm reminding you that almost the majority of the recent features within the past, I would say, 24 months, I could be wrong, but this is what I believe. Within the past 24 months, the majority of features to the C# programming language was heavily influenced by functional programming paradigm. And specifically, I would say that they bit off of F sharp. You know, the sync await, they're refactoring or implementing a new version of the tuple construct. They stole this from F sharp, man. They're talking about records in C sharp, in which is immutable by default. They stole that from F sharp. Non-nullable references. They're trying to, again, they recognize that C sharp is just an iteration of a language as humans continue to evolve on this planet. But the non-nullable types is, again, I would argue, the option type. Well, it's not the option type. It's a completely different implementation, but it's in reference to or an alternative to the option type or the maybe type in functional programming. Idiomatic functional programming, where if you're doing, well, idiomatic functional programming, there's no such thing as a null reference exception because the compiler won't let you until you do some object-oriented programming constructs, okay? So why am I saying all this? Well, because the Visual Studio tweeter person or group, they left out F sharp. And I really want F sharp to be a first-class citizen because I have a lot of time invested in learning, I would argue, a better way of building systems that are, I won't say intolerable, but less tolerable to bad programming habits, right? When you have by default thread safety, then I think that's a good thing. When you have by default immutability, I think that's a good thing. When you have by default composability, I would say that's a good thing. So I just don't understand why they would market Python in their tweet for the next version of Visual Studio instead of F sharp. Because I would argue that F sharp, if you look at it by default, it's already generic. I assume just like Python. It looks like a dynamic language. If you don't type anything, it'll just work as long as you're doing idiomatic functional programming. But I'm starting to think that Visual Studio on Twitter, I'm starting to believe that they just don't know about F sharp. Because if they did, then I think that they would recognize that it's probably more advanced and more safe and more productive when it comes to building large-scale systems than Python. That could be my ignorance. I'm ignorant about a lot of things, but sincerely believe that there's some truth in what I'm saying right now. So, say all this because I tweeted me venting back to them, and then the owner of the INI project snapped back and said, hey, because there's 1 million Python developers and only a dozen quote unquote F sharp developers. And then I responded with rapid action fire that, well, how did Python become 1 million developers, right? Which was rhetorical. And he responded by people not crying about why Python is being marketed and not F sharp. And so then I came back, because I win wars, man, I'm competitive. Came back and said, oh, okay. So you shouldn't vent or announce your disappointment when a tool such as INI has been built and is ready to go to make developers better at delivering value. Regardless of the problem that it solves, you should invent, if it's out there, if it can really help people make a lot of money and help businesses save a lot of money, you shouldn't get upset if it's not being recognized. And then I didn't wait for his response, because I know that if he responds negatively towards that, then it's about him and it's not about logic. He's a smart dude. He's way more advanced than I am in my development of building systems. But he's just wrong. And I'm not out of place for telling him that. I'm Scott Dog. That's what I do. Even at corporations and conference calls, I call things out, man, because that's what I'm being paid to do. As a developer that's extremely meticulous and detailed, my job is to call things out. You can say I'm not being positive, I'll say you go to hell, because my job is to root out issues before it goes into production, which I can't catch them all, but I think I do have over 15 years of experience of what not to do, because I already did it. So, what else? I think that's it. I conquered like 1.5 miles. I might dive in the ocean, bump some Rick Ross, and that's it. It's Scott Nimrod. My first time recording myself on my morning jog, and I keep it gutter. Yeah. Peace. Adios. I'm out. How do I turn this thing off? How do I turn it?